afternoon. I'd like to call the December 11th, 2018 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. I want to remind all present that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the November 13th, 2018 regular session.
So, Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, including the minutes of the regular session Board of Selectmen's meeting of November 13th, 2018, as presented.
Second. Just discussion on the appointment to Joanne Chopper. I abstained from voting, so if you just check it out. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting mail, there isn't. Appointments. First appointment is to approve the transfer of an alcoholic package store license for Chuck's Liquors. Under Chapter 138, Section 15 of the Mass General Laws, an open Board of Selectmen's meeting must be held this evening to approve the transfer of a package store alcohol license from Chuck's Liquors 2 to Gayatri Mata, doing business as Chuck's Liquors 2, to Kushboon Patel, manager, with pledge of license and change of hours on Sunday, opening at 10 a.m. The premises consist of 4 rooms on the first floor, consisting of main aisle area, office, loading dock, and walk-in cooler of a 2-story building situated on the east side of South Main Street and numbered 172 South Main, Acushnet, Mass. 02743. The ABCC requires an ad to be placed in the newspaper 10 days prior to the hearing, and it is attached to all the application and paperwork. Paperwork is in order. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the transfer of the package store all alcoholic beverage license from Chuck's Liquors to Gayatri Mata, DBA Chuck's Liquors, Kushboon Patel, manager, with pledge of license and change of hours on Sunday, opening at 10 a.m. as presented. I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, Kushboon.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I just want to introduce the applicant. My name is Attorney John Meridian from Democus Law Offices. With me is Kushboon Patel. She is the sole shareholder of Gayatri Mata Incorporated. She's purchasing the business at Chuck's Liquors over on 172 South Main Street. Today we're seeking to transfer the license to Gayatri Mata Inc., approval of Kushboon here as manager of record, and approval of a pledge of the license to Rothman Trust Company as they're helping finance the acquisition. It's going to be, lastly, we're asking for change of hours on Sunday morning to allow sale of alcohol at 10 a.m. It's essentially going to be the same operation. Kushboon, her husband, will work in the store. The 3 to 4 employees total. She is tip certified. There will be an ID scanner there for checking IDs. Essentially the same operation. She has experience. She works as a clerk right now at Liquor World over in Franklin, and has worked as a retail clerk at Kohl's Market. So she's experienced in the area. They run a clean store. With that, any questions you guys may have for the application?
No, just to inform the public, this is the last package store that has the 12 o'clock opening. All the other ones are at 10 o'clock.
Everybody else, we've got all the 10 opens, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Is she old enough to drink?
I am.
That's all, that's all.
I don't know, old enough to drink, old enough to serve.
You just did.
Okay, yes I did, didn't I?
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, good luck.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Chief. Oh, wait a minute, yeah. Chief House is recommended to hire Quinn Indio as a part-time officer. Mr. Indio is currently employed as a sworn police officer for South Coast Hospitals Group and holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Criminal Justice from Worcester State University. He also received high recommendations from nearly everyone the investigator spoke to during his background investigation. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to appoint Quinn Indio as a part-time police officer as presented.
Second.
Chief, Mr. Indio?
First of all, thank you. This is Mr. Indio, an opportunity to introduce him to you. Quinn has been a lifelong resident of Acushnet. He just recently graduated from college, so that's great news for his parents, obviously, and we're looking forward to having him start here in the community. We had asked for 5 officers. We only have one to present before you. As you know, the last time we came in here, we had started the part-time process first and then the full-time process. During that time of that original request, I've also informed the board that, we have one officer that's going to be deployed for 13 months at the end of this month. We also have one officer that's asked to be transferred out. What I would like is permission from the board to do a dual track for Mr. Indio and see if we can locate the next available full-time academy while he's fulfilling his part-time academy obligations. And that's my request tonight.
Yeah, I don't have any objections to that. The sooner we can get him on board as a full-time officer, that'd be...
How many part-timers do we have going out to academy now?
We have 3 right now.
He'll be 4?
Yes.
Be number 4?
He would be number 4. The academy the 3 that we have going shortly is the Plymouth Academy. There's only 18 seats available. When I say that, it would be an outside chance that I would be able to get Mr. Indio in that academy. It is a very minute chance. I'm probably looking at something that would be during the summer months. However, I'd like to start the process as soon as possible. It starts with, the physical, which we have to send him for the part-time academy. We also have to send him for the psychological and send him for a PAT. All of those things do take time, and rather than sending him twice, I think we might be able to save some time while he's fulfilling this obligation on a dual track, try to get him a full-time seat.
Do you
And
need
the
a
next
mo-
available.
Do you need a motion revised then, now?
Right, you just put him on the part-time list, so Lisa will be able to notify HRD that he's available for the full-time list tomorrow. So after he's been put on the part-time list, Ms. Leonard would then be able to contact HRD or, while on the phone with HRD, generate the next one.
Okay.
So it's 2 separate motions if you so choose.
All
Because I
pending.
have to get 2 separate requisitions.
We have to close one and open the next.
All right, why don't we vote this first?
Yeah. The motion was seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I make a motion to appoint, send Mr. Indio to the next full-time academy. Would that be the appropriate motion? Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Mr.
Chief.
Indio, anything
Thank
to
you.
say? Congratulations.
Just thank you. I've been a lifelong resident in Acushnet. I've gone through the public schools and, as you said, just graduated college with a criminal justice degree. So I'm excited. to
Runs in
start
your
my
family,
career.
doesn't it?
Yes. Yep.
Good for you.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Dan Manise Estates. Mr. Manise is coming in to brief the board on his definitive subdivision plans for Manise Estates. The proposal is for the new subdivision to be accessed via Blaze Drive, an unaccepted road which connects to a public way. The subdivision completed Blaze and Allison Drive that was submitted for acceptance. Mr. Manise would like to get feedback and ideas from the board regarding the subdivision. Also, this, We had a letter of concern from a neighbor, Joanne Demers, that, I don't know if she is here today.
Here.
Okay, and we can address this whole concern. If you have any questions, just speak up, raise your hand. and
Okay, thank you.
The concerns will be addressed. Mr. Young?
Good evening, happy holidays, gentlemen. I asked Jeff Tolman, professional engineer from SciTech Engineering, to come in and present Moniz Estates subdivision proposal on behalf of the project proponent, Dan Moniz, who's also here tonight. This subdivision proposal is currently in the public hearing stage with the planning board. But in addition, Jeff and Dan have met with the police, fire, EMS, building inspector, DPW, Board of Health, Concom agent, town administrator on multiple occasions as a group and also as individuals. So I thought it'd be appropriate at this time for Jeff to come in and obtain from members of the board their advice or opinions on key issues. And Jeff will discuss this project comprehensively, but I would like to call three items to your specific attention to be listening closely, and I encourage you to ask questions. And that would be on water pressure impact. As your role as water commissioners, that is going to be of interest to you. Request for waivers, and also vehicular access to the subdivision via Blaze Drive. So without further ado, I'll introduce Jeff Tolman.
Good evening. I'll step over to the board here. My name is Jeff Tolman. I'm an engineer with SciTech Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Dan Moniz of DPM Development, the applicant for the Moniz Estates subdivision.
Could you just move that, anybody in the audience, like,
Sure.
maybe come in closer? Turn it towards us, though, yeah.
How's this?
Can you see it, Kevin?
Sure.
If you turn it this way a little more.
Whatever.
You good?
I don't think I'm going to be able to get everybody, but...
No, I know you're not going to.
Okay. Just to quickly go through the plan, I'm not going to bore you with all the engineering details, the drainage and stuff like that. I'll just kind of touch on the things that Henry had mentioned that would be of interest to the board. The subdivision itself is a 17-lot residential subdivision that's being proposed off of Blaze Drive, which is kind of an extension of Margaret Street. Margaret Street is a road within the Hathaway Farms development that was built, I want to say it was around 2000 or so, maybe a little bit earlier than that. The location of this development is on the north side of Hathaway Road, and just to the west of where Hathaway turns into Mendel Road, to give you a general idea of where the project is going. A number of years back, a few years back, maybe 5 or 6 years or so, Blaze Drive was a subdivision, a 4-lot subdivision that was approved by the planning board and was under construction. The roadway itself has been constructed, and 2 of the dwellings within the subdivision have been constructed. The 2 dwellings on the north side of Blaze Drive were not built. At that time, Mr. Moniz came along and purchased the subdivision. So basically, he purchased the two lots on the north side of Blaze Drive, as well as the road that was under construction, which is a private road at the time because it hasn't formally been petitioned for acceptance with the town. And one of the reasons he did so was to gain access to the land that he owned on the north side of the Hathaway Farms development. So basically, the last few years, we've been working on putting together a subdivision on the back piece. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It was originally, a number of years back, there was a proposal to do cranberry bogs on the site. The work had started on the bogs. The irrigation pond was excavated. There is a bog up in this location here, which has been shaped or was never built. I believe the plan was to have 3 bogs going in this location here. Again, the first one was shaped. Second one a little bit more, not to the same extent, and then the third one was never really completed. So the land's been sitting dormant since that's happened. So again, we've been contemplating different ideas on how to develop it. The land itself, the entire parcel, is in the jurisdiction of a Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program. It's mapped as priority habitat for the eastern box turtle. And given the work that's been done on the site, it's actually, it's prime habitat for the turtles, because the soil's been disturbed, the top and subsoil has kind of been removed, and the sandy base where the bogs were going to be is prime habitat area for those turtles. So we've been dealing with Natural Heritage for a good year and a half on this particular site to come up with a plan that would satisfy their requirements. So as you can see on this plan here, we are showing a 66, or just over 66 and a half acre open space parcel on the northern portion of the site, over in this location. And the reason for that is to meet the requirements of a conservation management plan through Natural Heritage. So basically, we're restricted to working with the limit of work that we have outlined here where the lots are going to be. So, we went in, we've had several meetings with them. It hasn't formally gone through the process, but we do have something in the works to formally file an application with them simultaneously with the applications that we have before the Planning Board and Conservation Commission. So that is something that we're working on now. But the reason for our initial discussion with them was to determine, come up with a limit of work for, what would be appropriate on this particular site. So we do have, at this point, we do have an informal agreement on the, where the limit of work would be for the development. And we designed it in a manner that we wouldn't have to put any restrictions on the lots. A lot of times in the case like this, you would see, developers would sometimes restrict maybe the back half of the lots that couldn't be used, would have to be maintained in their natural state. We don't want to put any restrictions on the lot. So that basically, the open space that we have proposed and some mitigation that we're going to have to do along with that, as we get further into the permitting process with them, are going to satisfy their requirements. So I'm relatively comfortable saying that the perimeter that we're showing here on the 17 lots would be an acceptable limit of work with the state and Natural Heritage. So, to get into the actual development, again, we are proposing a road to come in off of Blaze Drive and basically take a 90-degree turn and go across the power easement, and then start accessing the 17 lots that we have proposed. It would come in, roughly take a 90-degree bend, and end at a cul-de-sac, which would be located just to the west of the irrigation pond. So the design itself is pretty, it's pretty basic. It is keeping everything on the south side of the development. There are 17 lots which do meet the zoning requirements of the town of Acushnet in terms of area and frontage. But as part of this development, we are proposing to extend the water main that comes through Margaret Street into Blaze Drive. We would, at this point, we are proposing a dead-end water line with several hydrants that will be located within the development, and a hydrant to be placed at the rear of the roadway at the cul-de-sac area. The roadway itself is approximately 1,700 linear feet. Yeah, 1,700 linear feet of roadway, again, with a hydrant to be located at the end of the cul-de-sac. At this time, we are requesting one waiver in particular with the planning board, and that was for the requirement of sidewalks. The reason we are requesting that is within the Hathaway Farms development that we're tying into and the Blaze Drive development that we've done, there are no sidewalks located in those developments. And as you get out onto Hathaway Road, I don't believe there's any sidewalks out on Hathaway Road. So if we were to construct sidewalks within this development, they would just end at Blaze Drive. They really wouldn't form a continuous pedestrian pathway to any place in particular. It would just strictly be within the development itself. We don't anticipate, being a dead end and stuff like that, 17 lots, we don't anticipate a high traffic volume within the development itself. The other issue that Mr. Young had mentioned was the issue of Blaze Drive. We've been going back and forth with the planning board and different people within the town as to figure out the best way to approach that. The road itself, again, it has been constructed. It's ready to be petitioned for acceptance. But due to the development that we're proposing, we don't formally want to seek acceptance at this time if we're going to be doing construction. Because we do not want a moratorium placed on the opening of that road, because we would have to connect utilities and stuff like that within the road. So we've been kicking that around back and forth, again, with the planning board, and we did get I believe we have an opinion from town council that says that we can move forward in the manner that we're doing here with the planning board. Blaze Drive does not have to be accepted prior to the planning board acting on the Moniz Estates plan. The idea being, we'd like to, go in, get the subdivision approved, get it constructed, and then petition for acceptance of Allison Drive and Blaze Drive all at the same time, in one shot. So that's a basic overview of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
I just have a couple of my opinion of what on the waivers on the sidewalks. They're in our bylaws. I can't see granted waivers for that. I mean, I know they end at that development, but if we don't start somewhere, we're never going to start doing them. I've driven around other communities and I've seen brand new developments with sidewalks going in. They end the same situation on a road where there's no sidewalk. So that's really not uncommon. It's in our bylaws. Another thing you said, the water pressure. I don't know if the DPW director is here. Well, he's not here, but and we'll have to talk to Woodward and Curran. They may require you to loop it.
I've reached out to them. I have had contact with them. I'm kind of waiting to hear back. I think they were looking for authorization from the town to actually perform the analysis. As a private engineer for a private developer, they're not going to, do any work at my request. So, but I know I have spoke to Carol Harris on a couple of occasions, and she believes they can perform the analysis that we're, looking to have done. I think they have the information in-house to do it. So.
Yeah, I just need these guys' approval that I can authorize Carol to run the model. No field testing, just run the model.
One more second. One more thing on that is utilities. We require in our bylaws underground utilities.
Yes, that's what we are proposing.
You're proposing that? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for coming in tonight. Mr. Moniz, I know he's in the audience. Mr. Moniz, welcome. I have a couple of concerns, just more so about the road and the cul-de-sac, but if you want to talk about the water, I've talked to Dan Bernard today, and I've looked at, we've had water testing done throughout the town, so I've checked that area, and we have really good pressure out there. So I think in that general area, there's an 8-inch main going down Hathaway Road, 6-inch main going into Margaret neighborhood. We're about 40 PSI is the lowest, it ranges between 40 and 73. So I don't think there'll be any impact there as far as water pressure goes. I did have a conversation with Mr. Menard today because I am very concerned about the loopage of the water. If you don't loop the water, it requires us to do more flushing in our gate valves because of stagnant water at a dead end. So I think there's ways that you can loop the water without significant cost. There's Lee Aaron Drive that comes in and cul-de-sacs at the bottom of your cul-de-sac down here. Mr. Moniz owns some property, so if you need to loop, you could run water pipe to loop back into the system on Lee Aaron Drive. So there's probably some ways that you can get through looping the water system without having us push it down, you said it was 1,700 feet and have a dead end there. I know that when we do, there's been developments before with dead ends instead of looping in the past, not under our jurisdiction, but in the past. There's more maintenance to the water system there if you don't loop it. So, and that's a pretty significant distance. 1,700 feet is a pretty decent distance. So it would cause us to be exercising our gate valves more and things of that nature. So there's more cost to the town, the more time we're spending out on that road to do such a thing. My question to you is where you're trying to engage with Woodard and Curran. Who's paying that bill if we do that? Is it the town?
So running the model would be at our expense, and then of course, as water commissioners, they would submit their water design with a certification, and we'd have Woodard and Curran review that. And at that time, they would run a comparison against the model. So the only thing we're putting ahead of time is run the model first.
What's the model to do again?
It determines if there's adequate pressure at the end of the
I'm sure
at the
you'd
end of
have
where the main
adequate
would be.
pressure at the end of the thing.
You know-
Just looping it is something that Mr. Menard is pretty persistent on, as I just talked to him this morning on it, and he said that he had mentioned something, and it's been a dead issue for roughly 6 months, that he hasn't heard too much more about this development, but he's telling me that he would like to see that loop, that system looped. So I think that as
Well,
water
the issue,
commissioners...
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the issue there, I thought was the issue of pressure. It was whether or not there was
Yeah,
going
no,
to be
we have
adequate
models
pressure.
already ran, we just did a whole thing for the whole town. So we have models with all our pressures throughout the whole town. So we know what our pressures are, I just looked at the pressures in that area of Margaret. We have decent pressure out there, better so there than in most places in town, to be honest with you. So I don't see any significant as far as water pressure goes for those 17 homes being developed there. I think it's more of a looping of the system, so I guess if that's the concern of the board, then we would have to have that taken a look at to see,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, another item.
What I'm
that-
saying about the loop, if I could just for 1 second, right over here, you don't have it drawn in, but there's a loop that comes in here, and it's Lee Ellen Drive, there's another
Lee
loop
Ellen's
somewhere, and there's an
over here.
easement by Mr. Manise
Right,
that
here,
owns
that's
here.
this piece here.
So you could just take that piping, come right over there and loop that right into that system. You follow me?
Yeah, it's a significant
Couple of
amount of
ways,
work.
couple of ways for you to do it.
Right. The other,
Place, it's gonna be done, eh?
Lee Ellen's at the top on the, off the top.
Doesn't show.
They have it.
the other item that we would be proposing and submitting to the planning board is, there is a section of Mora Lane that was not constructed when the subdivision was built. It's on paper, I want to say it's about 300 feet or so, 300 to 500 feet.
The depth or the width? The width seems very narrow, I know you're talking, it's like a paper street.
No, the width, yeah, there's a paper street, and it's kind of tough to see here, but on this, but this section here,
Yeah, there's a small opening there.
that was not constructed. So basically, the water system that you have in Hathaway Farms right now
Yeah.
is a dead end. There's no, it doesn't loop back out onto anything. So what we'd be proposing to do, and what we're gonna have to do, because of the length of our road and the dead end requirement that the planning board has, we're gonna be doing a roadway improvement for this section of Morro Lane, to construct, a passable roadway, to match the width on the existing roads in Hathaway Farm. And also, as part of that, we are gonna be connecting the water mains, connecting the water main in Hathaway Farm back out to Hathaway Road.
So you're looking to bring in a separate one, not tap off that water?
No, it would be,
You're coming off Hathaway Road, right? Right now, you have one inlet feed into the neighborhood from Hathaway Road, is that correct?
correct. So we
That's
would
through Margaret,
be
right?
providing a second, to make that whole
That's
subdivision.
correct.
So therefore,
So you're gonna, you just wanna run one pipe off the Hathaway Road main, the 8-inch main, and bring a 6-inch main into that little lollipop there, and not tap into any water that's currently being used in that neighborhood?
no, what we are proposing to do is, right now you have a water main that comes in Margaret, and I think it loops around Donna, Mora, out to Lee Aaron, this whole thing. I mean, there is a loop within the development, but there's one connection on Hathaway Road that goes
Correct.
through this development.
Correct.
What we're proposing to do is to make a connection on Donna Lane in this area and bring it out to Hathaway Road. So to connect, so this whole system in here would now be a loop.
Oh, you just wanna connect off the existing loops,
Loop this,
supposedly,
because
and follow that through. I get it, I know what you're doing.
So there'd be
That's-
basically two
There
supplies
you go.
going in.
Two supplies.
Right.
So this would be, this section of road would be improved. As part of that, we do put a water
I
main
understand
in
what you're doing.
to now do a loop, so
Yep.
the stagnant water that you have in here would be eliminated in this development. And then as part of our development, this would probably be comparable lengthwise, so we'd still end up with a dead end main, but in this section, you'd have a loop, which would include, increase the pressure, the flow going through there. So basically, we'd be trading off this dead end that you have here,
1,700 lineal feet for that. Is
taking
that
it from
what
here,
it's
putting it over here by
Yeah.
making this connection. So now the dead end would stop here as opposed to out at Hathaway Road.
Yes.
Could you go back to the image of Blaze and the proposed roadway? Was the image you had up before? Got a question or a comment? And the question, I mean, Blaze Drive is what it is, it's
Yes.
a cul-de-sac. Is there any way to, and I'm looking at what you've drawn, is there any way to merge those roadways so that you don't have that lollipop with the I mean, I'm assuming the finished product's gonna look like that, which just looks a little bit odd. Is there any way to merge those road, I mean, even if they're taking up some of that old asphalt and just converting that into a continuous roadway, I think it's gonna be more attractive than,
So the issue there would be, well, two items. We have an existing home located on this lot here. And maybe if I go, probably have a plan that shows it. This one will show it a little bit better. Okay, so you have these lot lines that come off of Blaze. So there's an existing house up in this area and another one off the plan here. By doing that, that driveway, which comes out here, would then have to be extended. And basically, what it would
how
be
about on
doing...
the other side, no? I guess our house, I don't know Blaze.
Leave it that way would be better for safety.
Is it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
It's just a little unattractive, I guess, is what my only point.
You know, on paper, it probably looks worse than what it actually is gonna look in the field. You know, we have looked at different scenarios. One of the issues we're dealing with is the crossing of the power easement. You know, they would like us to come in as close to 90 degrees as possible across the easement. I mean, we do have it bent down because of wetlands issues that we have on the site, so it's a little less than, 90, it might be closer to 80, 75, 80. But they'd like us to get across as soon as possible. So by doing that and having this roadway, really we don't have enough of a radius here to meet like town standard, and we'd be reconfiguring the whole right of way, which would really impact the people that are already currently on Blaze Drive, or, more so than what we're proposing at this point. So we have.
Just one more, Kevin.
Yeah, I was gonna touch base on the same topic.
And just, I mean, the second point is just, I mean, to what Mr. Chopper said, and this is to the planning board, I suppose. I mean, there are subdivision standards in town, and I think we either need to comply with the subdivision standards or change the standards, because it just feels like we're not you, but just universally, everyone's requesting waivers from the standards, and for some reason, we put those standards in place at some point, and everybody's asking for waivers, and I think that's sort of been a concern of this board, is we've got those standards in place, unless there's a good reason, unless there's a benefit to the town in waiving those standards, I'm not sure we should be waiving the standards. I mean, 1,700 feet's a pretty long roadway, and I think the people buying those house lots would appreciate the sidewalk in their neighborhood, regardless of the there's going to be traffic on the street. There's 17 house lots. There's going to be traffic on the street. I think they'd appreciate the sidewalk, so.
Well, let me ask you this, would a sidewalk on one side as opposed to two be more acceptable?
What side of the road you want to live on? The one with the sidewalk or the one without?
Mr. Merritt's got a point.
Personally, it wouldn't bother me either way. I guess shoveling wise, you would probably want to live on the side without, but I don't know.
Mr. Barrett?
Mr. Chairman, this is just a suggestion, but rather than sidewalks on both sides, I think it would be possible, especially if they're taking Moore Lane all the way out to Hathaway. You could put sidewalk on one side and continue it all the way out to Hathaway. By increasing it that way, we have a direct line out to the main thoroughfare, which, may help school buses and the, projected travel lane of that. Plus, it would give a pedestrian access for the people who live in the subdivision out to the main road.
How long would that extend the sub?
Well, it'd actually be a reduction in the length of
Reduction to them,
sidewalk
but
that
it'd
they'd
be
be
going
building.
down other roads.
Whatever the distance is, you're saying bring it from Hathaway Road in to Blaze
Yeah.
What I'm
Drive?
saying, rather than two sides of the.
I
on
understand
one side
that,
of
but
the
you're saying
subdivision,
add the sidewalk to be continuance out to Hathaway Road, I thought you
Yes.
said?
Where they're gonna put the new water line.
I would,
Mr. Chairman, she'd like to.
I would also like to say, I would like to see it start at Hathaway where they're opening Moore Lane, have it come down, maybe one part of Blaze Drive and then down into Allison. I think it would be beneficial and safer for all of us walking in that area.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, yes. So going back to the Blaze Drive cul-de-sac, so if you take that 90-degree, I understand now you're doing it for easement reasons, because of Eversource, I would assume that owns that easement for power lines reasons. The problem with that cul-de-sac right now, and the problem with that new proposed road, Allison Way, I guess it's gonna be called, is if you take that 90 degrees and you bring it straight into, I think it's Margaret.
So you have the center line of your road coming here to the center line of this road?
Yes.
So how's traffic gonna come down here and come to a 90-degree to make a correct corner? How are you gonna prevent this kind of willy-nilliness and these people coming around and these people coming around? So you're just gonna take this and then come somewhere short of center line and draw it around like that and make the center line loop like this from the cul-de-sac? Or are you gonna make the people come all the way out here to the center line of the road to get on this side of the road?
This pavement's gonna remain.
I know, but you got the center line of this road, so you got a center line of the road, you got an intersection point here, right? So how far down do you expect these people to drive before they start making the hook? Or you want them to cheat the corner over here and end up on this side of the road, you follow me? So this is probably gonna be a traffic safety issue right here in this little congested area. That's all I'm bringing up.
Well, it would be expected that these people would come down and travel in the same manner on a cul-de-sac as anybody coming into the development would. Now, whether or not that's gonna happen, whether they're gonna cut this a little bit, I'm sure that's gonna happen as well. There would be, I would imagine there's gonna be a stop sign at this location, because these people would have the right of way in this cul-de-sac, so you come to a stop and then come around the cul-de-sac and exit the development in that fashion.
And if that concern, would it be a possibility to put a little island in there and just go around, make it go? So
Make it more like a rotary style. I just,
yeah, in a sense, yeah, put a little monument there or something.
well,
They're not lenient, Eversource won't be lenient for you to move that that road another 10 degrees to cut some of that angle, that right angle. It's almost the right angle, as you said, 90 degrees is the right angle, correct?
correct.
Okay, so you're cheating it, by the looks of it, I mean, you might be cheating it, 5 to 10 degrees. They're not gonna allow you to cheat that road another 10 degrees, or is there a reason why you don't wanna cheat that road? Is there other development plans inside the side of that lot on the side? So in other words, if there's nothing happening here,
Why couldn't, you're saying they want you to cut across as quick as possible, but leaning this by another 10 feet is only gonna make you, the hypotenuse of that angle is only
Yeah,
gonna be another 10
the one
feet.
thing I'm not showing within the easement is the location of the actual poles that are out there, and I know there's a row of poles in here, there's a row of poles in here,
yeah, that's fine.
and I don't know
But I mean, you
how.
can't take the road like that and then tip the road like that, like almost a V then, and only do it on a certain section of the road, just to make it come in. It just seems a little cockamamie in the way it is. And I know it's kind of after the fact that you've extended a development, a road, and now you bought development rights and you're looking to do that, and I don't have any problem with it. It's a nice development. I think it'd be good for the town. I just think that, for public safety reasons, traffic reasons, I think that could become a problem. And I think that's part of the rules and regulations of the planning board, is traffic.
Right, I think the idea of rotary is interesting. There'd be a minor maintenance issue associated with that, but that could, I think, meet the needs of the
If that's a concern to those.
safety issues.
I just did the same type of development in Dayton, and that's exactly what we did, is we took a cul-de-sac, we didn't change the pavement.
Yeah.
I've done them in the past where that town actually makes you eliminate the pavement within the cul-de-sac, but you keep the right of way the way, and it's a nightmare. But the one in Dayton, we kept the pavement, we added a island into it, and we made it more of like a rotary style.
Yeah.
So people coming in, they know that they have to, you're coming out this way, you gotta go around this way, if you're coming in, you go to that side. And it works fine, it actually works great, so.
Yeah, I don't, the simpler fix to something like that, the better off. I mean, you can put a flagpole in the middle of the cul-de-sac if you want, it really doesn't matter. And then as long as the lines, the street lines are telling people where to go,
Yeah.
at least if you get an accident report, the cop's not gonna go out, the police officer's not gonna go out there and start guessing of which guy belonged on what side of the road, and there's no side of the road, so everybody's at fault, and that's just, it kinda gets screwy for the town.
Sure.
And law enforcement, so I just think, and public safety, quite honestly, I mean, I think that's everybody's emphasis. I know Mr. Manise, I've seen a lot of his developments he's done in different towns, including our own, and he does a phenomenal job, so I think that, speaking with your client, Mr. Manise, I mean, he's here tonight, he can comment if he would like. I think that he's gonna, in his best interest, he's gonna do whatever it's gonna take to make it as safe as possible, so that it's appealing to the people buying those lots, right? I mean, you don't want to be going in there, and you don't want people coming in and looking at homes and going, hey, dude, this is a pain in the butt to get in here. And then you have a fire chief with a fire apparatus that need to swing that corner and make sure we can swing that corner. So there's a few things that you might be able to help out in the condition of, sticking a tree in the middle of that without digging up tower. I'm not expecting anybody to start ripping up tower and reconforming that cul-de-sac, but we need to do something.
Well, I think the only issue potentially there would be the size of the cul-de-sac, the actual pavement that was put in, that was approved for the Blaze Drive development. I don't know what the radius is. It's a little bit
Is it
less.
underside to the specs?
Well, it matches the design plan, but it's, as you can see, it's offset. It's not within the right-of-way of Blaze Drive. So we'd have to look at that and make sure by, putting an island in. I mean, the island itself would be a very small radius island.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're looking for anything too big.
No.
But we just want to make sure the fire trucks
Yeah.
would be able to.
Something to put a sign on there or something, that's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, relatively small island in the middle, I think would do the trick.
Joanne?
I had a question, and I apologize, because I don't know if I should present it here
Yeah, no,
or
absolutely.
before the planning board.
You could do both.
But since Blaze Drive, you're going to hold off in accepting it as a street, can we request like temporary signage? It's been difficult to have, whether it's Sears deliver a washing machine to the house, to getting FedEx deliveries and me having to go to Rainham. I'd love to have,
A street sign?
a street
Oh,
sign.
It's up to the owner of the property.
Who developed the property?
Mr.
Mr. Manise?
Denise.
Give her a street
Yeah.
sign.
But here's the other issue, that
Please.
you want to understand that we probably will recommend, I mean, this will have to go to the street naming committee when it goes for presentation for acceptance, but my recommendation to the street committee, correct me if I'm wrong, you'd have to change Blaze Drive to be an extension of Margaret, so it'd be Margaret Street. So Blaze Drive, the name would go away, and it would be Margaret Street. That would probably have to go through the 9/11 and the street naming committee.
That would be an expense that somebody would need to fund me for my deed, for my homestead, for changing,
That wouldn't change.
everything.
No.
The deed and homestead wouldn't be affected.
No.
But all your
Changing,
personal things,
yes.
Yeah.
Something, why wouldn't the deed be changed? It's a different name of the
Deed.
street.
But it would refer to meets and bounds.
It's
That's
no
what-
road names in the
That's correct.
deed? Okay. So,
Mr. Manise?
Yep, I'm Dan Manise, DPM Development. It's something that really should have never been in the beginning, because it really is a continuation of Margaret Street.
correct.
So now we're trying to, with the help of everyone in the board and all, to get that changed. That should have been Margaret Street from day one. But I purchased this subdivision from someone else prior, and his wishes to me was not to change the name, but his wife's safety reasons, even for the fire department, the police, anybody, small 300 feet of road, and they gotta find that.
Right now,
makes no
we
sense.
did some investigation, Blaze Drive isn't even listed on the 9/11 map.
So, even worse.
So this is if you had an emergency on that road right now, we'd be relying on all officers' knowledge of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's an issue.
But now they're aware of it, we're gonna update that 9/11 list so that you will be on it, those two residents will be on it, and that won't occur.
So as wise as this sign, that's the reason why, until we get this thing
not
changed, why we haven't put up the street sign.
How long, if you get approval for this development, Mr. Manise, how long do you think it would take you to develop this?
Well, there's a 25% release on each lot, so automatically that's 4 years. So, we've applied this year, already goes into next year, so I get basically 50% of that. And then another year, another 25%, and then another 25%.
So now you need to make a sign, a street sign that says temporarily Blaze Drive.
Right,
It would help.
or if it gets changed, I can just get the Margaret Street, put it up, and everybody knows it as Margaret Street,
Could you change it?
with a stop sign.
It's not a town approved road.
It's not in a town approved road.
Yeah,
can't-
you
we don't
want
have
that
road.
I mean, the direct answer to the
Okay.
question, the man owns a private road, he can
Yeah.
petition the street naming committee to name it Margaret, it doesn't change its status legally, but you could petition the street naming committee now and change the name, now. Doesn't
that
need a
would
town
make
meeting
sense.
vote,
That would make sense.
doesn't mean anything.
That
Just
would
needs
that would
vote of the
probably make
committee.
perfect sense then to do it that way.
And then you'd have to figure out what the numbering would be, but
Right, because now I'm number 2, and there's already a number 2 on Margaret Street.
Right,
and-
right. Well,
And
someone
I don't know
from
if
the
they
town
would call
would
it
be
Margaret
interested
Street
in
Extension.
They would give us.
I'd have to wait till I get to the street naming committee.
So the principal assessor's sitting behind the building commissioner right now, and she would have to give, Ms. Koska, that would be you, wouldn't it?
For what?
For numerizing a
For
street
the
or?
numbers, no, since they're established, it would be in tandem with 9/11, the 9/11 coordinators as well, to get the identity
made on those houses, because it's already established, and they've already have an account, and it's already moved forward.
Right.
So for the uniformity and the safety aspect of it, we're definitely in coordination with.
Yeah, that's fine. So
fire.
we could work with you, Mr. Minnies, on that and figure out what the protocol is for you to move forward with that, so.
Any more questions
I
from the
do have-
audience? You do? Yes.
On that subject though, Mr. Gaspar, in reference to new dwellings that will be, I mean, let's say this all happens, I think something should be definitely done so the other new homeowners don't run into this problem and maybe not put the cart in front of the proverbial horse and get that set, so all the new dwellings will have good addresses.
That's not gonna be Margaret Street.
This could be Allison.
Allison.
Never mind.
That's correct, it'll just be the two houses.
Good point.
The concern is just the two houses for numbering.
I thought Blaze Drive was gonna
And
stay.
renaming.
We could number the lots ahead of time.
Never
Different
mind.
road name within the development.
Perfect.
Okay, any more questions from anybody?
I
Yes.
have one. I live on Mendel Road.
Could you state your name?
Yes, Connie Preston.
Okay.
Lived there almost 50 years. You mentioned the water pressure. I'm wondering how 17 additional houses are going to affect the water pressure down my way.
Not significant.
Shouldn't be significant, that's why we're doing, you heard us talk about the study with the Woodward and Curran. So it takes the whole area in general, not just Margaret Street area. So the study will impact the whole
Okay.
area there.
That's-
It would take
So-
more than 17 houses for you
Yes.
to come up with a noticeable difference.
So could I ask Mr. Chuck, could I just ask one more question related to her question on the topography of this development? Is it pretty flat, or is it hilly, valleyed? So this Allison Road, would it be in a valley, or would it be upstream?
It's going up.
There's considerable grade change around the bend in the road. You can see all
How
the
many,
grade.
how many feet do you think that topography changes? From the cul-de-sac on Blaze? Let's call it Margaret.
So where we're tying the roadway in is roughly, we'll call it elevation 70.
That's
Okay, and so then you go down to a low point, which is around elevation 64, and then you're coming back up to around elevation 80 at the top.
So that's short of a variable. We just did one off Park Drive, and it dropped significantly down, and we had water pressure concerns there. And we did some testing there, and we had very low pressure upland from that development, which was, I think it was 13 or 15 homes, Park Drive?
Correct, yes.
Somewhere around 15 homes, so similar to this development. And it changed water pressure by maybe 2.5, 3 PSI, I want to say max, when we did an hour-long test. And we went out and did our own testing as a town to ensure the residents that were already in that neighborhood, that they wouldn't experience significant water pressure. So we went ahead and we did them tests, so this board now has some experience when it comes to water pressure, and what volume you would be using, and if it's the same amount, we could relate pretty much the same scope of mathematics to this project, and it was a much bigger drop. So it would have more of an impact on the previous one that we did than this proposed development, because that variable in topography is not that great. You follow me?
I do. I'm just keeping my fingers.
Yeah, we have really bad pressure, so up in off the Nice Lane is where Park Drive is, okay? So we had one area was on Clark Street, that was a concern of the water commissioners, which is this board, where we only had like 30, 31 PSI, which is already kind of getting to the point where you really don't want to be messing around, because the state the DEP holds a threshold for water commissioners at 20 PSI to maintain 20 PSI within that water infrastructure for cross-contamination reasons. And we've only dropped down, I think the test results, I have them all at home. I think the test results, the lowest that one dropped, which was the danger hydrant, I think it dropped 2.5 PSI, so there was no significant change. Even when we did fire flow testing, there was no significant drop. It took a little plunge and went right back up. So I have all the tested. Matter of fact, the town, we possess all of that water tested. If you care to look at somebody else's development to see what happened, we can explain it to you. But I wouldn't be, with that area being up over 40 PSI, you're starting off pretty good.
Based on that, and I would defer to her decision, but the cost of running the model, which as you know is very accurate on the last time we did it, against the actual physical test, we could run the model and make that information available. I don't think the cost it's under $500. We could run that model and come back with a projected result. If that would make the board feel more comfortable. I think that Mr. Gasper's correct, the pressure is significantly high enough there that this should not be an issue at all. But if you want belts and suspenders, we could run them on.
All right, any more questions? I think we're all set. I mean, I think you get the general feeling where we're
So
set
planning
together.
board, you've heard the concerns, you know what's going on, if there's anything tweaking that you can do, especially for that, the way it intersects into Margaret, I'm gonna call it now.
Yeah, okay.
You know, that intersection point where, you know, you have the two lines, center lines of the road being
Yeah,
intersected.
we'll certainly take a look at doing maybe putting an island in there. I
See
think
what's-
that's,
See how it works out. All
Make it easy.
right, thank you for coming in.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manise.
Thank you.
All right. What this? Old business, fire chief presentation regarding Glaston on PJ Keating property and the new flammables permit road. There's nothing in the book. Just keep up.
I am going to take advantage of this to get this information to you.
Yeah, we can see that.
Well, I'm hoping the camera can.
We don't have that in our book, just so you know.
Hoping the camera can pick it up.
Draw stick figures.
Good for you, gentlemen. Oh, so you're going to need to share.
No, that's ours.
Yep.
No, we don't.
That is ours.
Yeah, we had that.
Seen him walk in with it.
So he's got his.
Yeah, we'll give it back.
You're on.
Hey, gentlemen, thank you very much. I think the first order of business is the combined flammable storage permit for
Yes.
PJ Keating. The town has received guidance from council and from the Commonwealth relative to new local requirements regarding the storage of flammable liquids. At PJ Keating, they have a license through the Board of Selectmen for asphalt, which is a flammable liquid. They also have a license for diesel and for gasoline. Those are three different licenses. The recommendation that I would like to make tonight, in consultation with Mr. Noble, is that we combine those three licenses into one. And the fact that PJ Keating is proposing to move the asphalt plant from the back section, where the license was originally granted, to the front section, is a change that would trigger a new round of licensing and public hearings. So, Mr. Noble, do you have any other information you want to
Well,
share with the board?
first of all, as you recall, when we sent the new regulations down to PJ Keating, they objected, you know. And they're moving the storage of flammable triggers a public hearing before this board. And so we went back to town council to make sure we were correct in our interpretation. So before they can move forward, they're gonna have to come back in with a site plan of where the flammables are gonna be stored, and they have to have this board's approval. So those new rules and regulations are in effect and they do apply.
Question on, so merging the licenses, what does that, why? I mean, why not leave it as it is? What does it do to merge them?
It's more a administrative paperwork function. They would all be tied to the same initiation date, the same expiration date, as opposed to where they are now. And it really is just for administrative purposes.
Does it hurt us in any way? Do we lose
I don't
any, do
think
we
legal
lose any
counsel-
authority? Do we
No.
lose any?
We've actually gained because there's now a public hearing for the moving. So this is actually a good thing.
So it's the issuance of a new license, inclusive of the old three, but because it's being a change in location, it triggers the public hearing, which I think would be a benefit to you as the licensing board and to the community as well, to hear them out.
Are they looking for, oops, sorry, bigger capacity of storage too? Or
No.
Since that don't matter?
Correct.
Okay.
Here's what I struggle with, and I, not your issue, just bigger issue. It really feels like there's not anything we can do about it anyway. I think we've made it very clear to them that we don't like the idea of moving all this stuff closer to the roadway, to move these flammable liquids, to move the asphalt plant, to move the sound, to move the odors, to move the traffic, to move it all closer to the roadway. We've objected to that, we've made it clear that we object to that, and is this, are we just pretending that this matters, or is this a real approval and we're gonna say no, and that kills the plan, that kills the whole move? So is this, are we just pretending that we've
You have to have a
got
good
any
reason.
authority over this?
You have to have a basis for turning them down. So in other words, you can turn them down and you don't give a reason, they go to court and it gets overturned.
Well, it doesn't.
So if you go back and say for public safety reasons, for the fact that it's close to a neighbor, because, you know, the flashpoint is X and it's this many yards from there, you can deny.
We've said, I mean,
But
we've
then it's an
settled,
argument
we've
as to
settled
why.
that.
But
We've
the
settled.
town did not adopt site plan review or site plan approval, so consequently, you really don't have the authority to tell them what they can do within their property. As you and I had gone and attended that meeting, if they create an increased public nuisance, we'll be in the enforcement business.
We've made it clear to them.
And we've made it very clear to them that this is an unwise move and we think that this is gonna invite trouble, and they have decided to proceed. And as you know, we had a basis to issue the building permit, but building permit's been issued and they have how many months to act on it?
6 months.
6 months, and they've already used 2.
Yes.
So they only got 4 more months. I don't see much activity down there, do you?
That's just a
So
start
this-
though, right?
I mean, what are your concerns, Chief, about them moving those flammable, are there real concerns about that stuff being closer to the road?
I have a ton of concerns. And I look forward to PJ Keating and their representatives bringing to us the plans. We still haven't seen the plans. If they're 4 months away from startup date on a new facility, no one's talked to us about that.
It's 4 months to break ground, right? Is it break ground or?
4 months to begin the process, but they haven't talked to us. So we look forward to seeing those plans. I've talked with the state fire marshal personally, and he's gonna have some of his engineers available to us to kind of do a peer review. I want, and I believe we had talked about this before, this is a little outside of my sweet spot. So I'm looking for a fire engineering peer review to make sure that we don't miss anything. But I have a lot of concerns about the quantity of those combustibles close to the roadway, close to the streams, close to residences, the movement of aggregate, that, you know, all the ingredients that go into baking the cake, also close to those 3 areas. So I think we're gonna have a very high bar for Keating to meet when they come and request a permit from the head of the local fire department.
So right now, you have no idea where they want to put it?
No.
Nothing?
We've heard.
You've heard
been
that they
told-
want to move it somewhere forward, but it could be on the sidewalk for some, but obviously.
There was one location, and now apparently that location is out, and they want to move it to another location, but they're not being specific at all.
In that area, I know there's houses that go all the way back. How much closer to the houses? will-
Considerably, considerably. From, I believe it's over 1,000 feet to now a few hundred feet away from a occupied residence.
Oh,
And so, and to Mr. Cabral's point, for 10 years, I slept on Russell Street. And in the dead of summer, you could hear the asphalt. And that's tucked away deep into, you know, the back section of their facility. You move it up front. And yes, the containment of that combustible liquids is a concern. But the headache is gonna come from the noise, from the traffic, from the sound. That's a 24/7 operation. It's going to require a great deal of review by the town. And I've got one slice of it, which is the storage, the permitting of the storage. And as I said, we got to establish that bar for public safety very, very high. And I know Mr. Carrier and the Board of Health, you know, they feel the same way, so.
Bob, just want to reconcile where the two of you are. We've issued a building permit based on, they've told us where they're going to put the asphalt plant. But your issue is they haven't told us where they're going to put the flammables that feed the asphalt plant.
Nor a fire protection plan, nor a fire suppression plan.
All right.
None of the engineered plans that we would expect to see we have not seen.
But we know where the asphalt plant's going, that, we issued a permit for that, but not for the flammables yet.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
correct, okay, all right, thank you.
Just one quick comment. Thank you, Chief, for all the hard work you've done on this, PJ Keen. I know you've been heavily involved with this. As far as the 3 different permits go, did we speak to council on this and say there's no grandfather in because they had this permit, that permit, and that permit, and now that you're merging, it doesn't allow you to do this kind of review and reissuing a license and things of that nature? We're not gonna waste our time and spin our heels and then just find out there's a hiccup because there's a grandfather clause, right?
No grandfather clause.
And council,
We did consult with council.
and their recommendation was to consolidate it into one permit, one license.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, when it comes to safety issues like that, I mean, I wasn't for the bylaw, just for the record, I wasn't for that bylaw change when this facility went to town meeting vote. I was probably the only one against it, but neither here or there. Here we are today. I'm trying to backwards pedal.
Part 2?
Part 2?
Part 2. Do you mind? Briefly, I know the night is getting late. We wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about the other aspect of PJ Keating, which is the blast that many people have brought to our attention. They seem to be increasing in intensity and in noise. I'm sure you've received phone calls. I know the office has, the Board of Health has, and I have, as the permitting official for the blasting. And it is extremely frustrating, and I'm very much sympathetic, I'm sure you are as well, to the folks who call and say that their house rattled and shook. And we take that information, and unless there's damage caused, there's no follow-up. There's nothing we can do, and I wanted to take a minute to explain why and something that we may be able to do. So for consolidation purposes, when the blast occurs, which is permitted with 48 hours, we rewrote the blasting guidelines by the town, and the blaster and the quarry are adhering to that. So we have the opportunity to have a representative on site. We have daily seismograph reports that are sent to my office, as well as a video of each blast. And they haven't missed one yet. But when the blast occurs, there's a concussion of air that moves upward. And if there's no overcast, if there's no obstructions, you would expect that to dissipate. If there is change in temperature or humidity or clouds, that concussion of air is forced back down, mushrooms back down. That causes the structures to rattle. And again, 24 Russell Street rattles, Town Hall rattles.
Down there, housing, they rattle, I feel
right.
it shakes there.
So they blasted today at 11:30, and we received some comments that folks' homes did shake from that. In addition to the concussion, there's the ground vibration. And that's what we're getting science on. We get these reports every time there's a blast, we get this report. And that, again, I will pull these and send them to the fire marshal's office. They have a department that reviews blasting. And they'll look at it and say, Chief, as long as it's below that line that I've highlighted in yellow, they're fine. The standard, the code, the regulation from the federal government adopted by the state and implemented here in town is that graph. It's called a Z graph. And above any blast that registers a data point above that yellow line is not compliant. Anything below is compliant. Now, those data points are, refer to my note, are measuring peak particle velocity. I'm not a science teacher, but the way it was explained to me, I could figure it out. They said, imagine a piece of matter in the ground, and there is a blast. That matter is going to wobble, and those data fields are measuring the velocity of the ground wave by how much that piece of matter wobbles, and the frequency, or the time it takes for it to wobble. So all these sensitive machines, and the 2 reports we get every day, one is in front of 166 Lawson Avenue, which is the closest structure, residential structure, to the quarry. And then the other is from the northeast corner of the facility. Brookside, Green Meadow, that neighborhood. Those are permanently located there. That data comes in. We look at it, and you can see all those data fields are below that curve. Think of it as a speed limit. Above, you're breaking the law. Below, you're abiding by the speed limit. So while folks will call and say, my house shook, we understand that. We look at the data, and we come back and say, but they were below the curve. So yes, you had a car speeding through your neighborhood, and the speed limit's 35, but they were traveling at 34. They weren't breaking the rules. If they go above that, we'll be all over them, and we can shut them down. But they're not above that. You'll see, however, that one is closer to the Z-curve than the other. The first one is 166 Lawson Avenue. This is from the 17th of October.
This is the same blast, two locations.
Yes. And you can see those data collection points are well below. That's because the blast that day occurred in the northeast corner. And you'll see that they're inching upward. Now, the quarry isn't, it's a limited resource. So they've already removed all the rock they can in one section, and they're expanding. That's why they want to move the asphalt plant. So we're seeing more activity in the northeast corner, so they're getting close to the Z-curve, which is a legitimate concern for the folks around town that are feeling these vibrations. But again, until they break the speed limit, we're limited in what we can do. So we asked some questions, and kind of a little befuddled by the response. The Z-curve was established the year I graduated from high school, 1980. It has not been modified since then. It was established by the United States Bureau of Mines, a federal agency which is no longer in existence. And it is a one-size-fits-all standard. So in the Badlands of Montana, or Dakota, where there are no residents for tens and tens of miles around the quarry, they're held to the same standard as the quarry in Acushnet that has a resident at 166 Lawson Avenue.
No adjustment for soil
No
conditions, or?
No.
No.
No. So the Z-curve, I should tell you, what the scientists did is, below that, there's 5% or less chance of there being cosmetic damage to a structure. And the federal government considers that drywall. Above that, there's more than a 5% chance that the shape will cause damage to the drywall. That's the same standard. So a house 25 miles from a blasting site in the Dakotas is being held to the same standard that we are here in this community. Now, a blast is a blast is a blast. And we've had some kind of pushback, but saying, well, it's the same standard everywhere. We're not scientists. Don't claim to be. Don't want to be. But we do have some common sense. And the data that was collected is nearly 40 years old. The equipment, the computers, the seismographs that were used to establish that standard, 4 decades old. And it hasn't been revised. It hasn't been looked at. So we've presented a draft letter for you to consider sending to the congressional delegation, which doesn't challenge the science behind the Z-curve, but it does challenge the fact that the federal government hasn't looked at it in the last 40 years and may want to consider lowering the speed limit for communities that have development around an operating quarry. So you lower that speed limit, now you're going to force them to tamp down on the velocity, the peak particle velocity. So, it's not a definitive. I would be very, very curious as to the response that you're going to get from our delegation if you choose to send a letter. This is not there's sort of a deregulation mantra in Washington right now, so I'm not sure whether or not we're going to be able to get the attention of the folks, but I think it's worth a try. I think it's worth a try for the residents who feel their house shaking on a regular basis. And I think it's something that's long overdue. 40 years without updating a standard, simply based on, we've got watches now that can tell me if I'm about to have a cardiac arrest. And I'm sure that watch has a lot more power and computing capacity than the computers that came up with this 4 decades ago. We didn't have computers 4 decades ago, and
Is this standard that's been developed on a certain amount of blast? So, using X amount of blast?
surface quarry operations.
But if they
All
did,
of them are
smaller
firefighters.
blasts, but more frequent, but smaller blasts, would you still have that same impact?
Yes. So
Would.
any blast, when we were blasting on South Main Street,
Yeah.
Kugo Street, for the sewer line, they were held to this standard.
Okay.
So any blast at all. So, Mr. Noble,
No, I'm not saying the standard, I know the standard is one and done.
Yep.
When I'm saying to you, see the one that's gone haywire over there?
Yep.
You said it's on the northeast corner, because that's where the blast was done, was close to the northeast corner? Okay. If you did a smaller blast, like instead of using, let's just call a blast 10 sticks of dynamite, if you use 5 sticks of dynamite and you did it twice, would you end up with that same result, or would it be lowered so the amount of shake and volatility you have in the earth be the same?
I would assume it would be less. That's just an assumption on my part. Right.
I mean, I don't understand, I
But again,
understand
I
they
think
don't
the
care.
pushback that we would get from the quarry and the blasters, we're not breaking the regulation.
No, I understand.
We can use the amount of dynamite that gets us just below that yellow line. But the question that we should be asking.
There was a mutual agreement, and I don't know what happened to that. Mr. Cabral's been with the town administrator and all the department heads on trying to put this thing forward. And I don't know where it ended up, but there was a mutual agreement that we're gonna be good neighbors, so I don't know what happened to the good neighbor thing, but if that was something that they could consider, and the question was asked the way I asked it, if you did smaller blasts, just 2 blasts instead of 1 blast, bing, bam, done, and you could reduce that amount, I mean, why, would they say no? Would they say, yeah, we could consider doing that?
Blaster would probably say there's some safety considerations. They drill holes, so let's assume that
I
they
know, I
blast
understand.
holes. They blast 5 now, then they gotta go in and pack the other 5 and drop that section. They could be, I don't know. But
I don't know
it's
either.
worth asking that question. So let me wrap up by telling you a few things. Today's results were reversed from this. I was out of town at a meeting today, I got the email, checked it out, and Boston Avenue, it was closer to the Z curve, and the northeast corner was lower, because the blast was in that section. Now, you're gonna be able to see that blast. Mr. Noble has been working, and that's the paper that you see, a snapshot from the website, under the Soil Conservation Board, under boards and committees. We are posting all of the seismograph reports for the public to have access to going back to September, and we'll continue to do that. We also are posting all the videos, and I think if I could share one request with the public, take a look at the videos. Because I think that there's some folks who think it's a very small exercise, others who think it's Hiroshima. And you'll see, when you see the videos, of what an actual blast looks like. It's impressive, but it's not a huge mushroom cloud.
Tell what the scale is.
And it's also not an M80 going off, so it gives some perspective. We also have a explanation of the Z curve, similar to what we've done for you tonight. So the Thursday of this week will be the next blast. It potentially is also the last blast of the year. And then, we'll start all over and begin posting these again. But compliments to the board and to Mr. Noble for making this available to the public. It's something we've never done before. Until this new regulation went into effect in town, we weren't getting this data. We're getting it now, but we want to share it with the public so that they can kind of monitor the operations of the quarry as well. And one last thing, Mr. Corral, I'm sure you'd be interested in this. Driving home tonight, I heard a news report that the state legislature's committee had a hearing today on gas infrastructure relative to damage that was caused in Andover and those other communities. What I would recommend is, possibly your board contacting our local delegation. If the state is looking to throw money into studies, they might want to study the integrity of natural gas infrastructure around quarries. Because if the ground is shaking and houses are shaking, the concern is that gas lines may be shaking as well. And we do send in, and I'm going to give Eversource our thanks. Upon request, they will send a crew in to do the survey where they're driving up and down the street looking for leaks. And we get those reports. But I would strongly recommend that if the state is going to be serious about looking at natural gas infrastructure, that one of the areas they might want to concentrate is in the communities that have operating quarries, and one like ours that's been operating for as long as any of us have been alive. So
That was in our legislative priorities.
Yeah.
Just comment on
I
that.
want to thank you, Chief, for that.
Sure.
You know, like, say, the 40-year-old standard, sad part about it is probably still people in there that voted for the original one.
But Chief, the copy of the letter that I got it was difficult to read. But I in general endorse this concept of sending this letter. If we could take maybe at the next meeting, take action on it and review it. But in general, I endorse the concept of sending the letter. I just like to, give it a good read.
Sure.
before we do.
Sure, and now,
I'm comfortable with the idea.
And I will recommend when I get phone calls, and I'm sure Mr. Noble and staff will as well, once this letter goes in and our congressional delegations put on notice that we would like for this to be looked at, the residents in town that are concerned about this should be reaching out to them as well, to show the interest in taking a look at a 40-year-old standard.
And one more thing before you go, it's in the town administrator's report, you got about 2 minutes to talk on this.
Yeah, you had the EMS application for the needle disposal program.
Yes.
The grant was accepted, and you gave me the paperwork, and I appreciate that very much.
Yes.
How much do we get?
None, nothing.
Okay.
Oh.
Nothing.
Well,
Sorry.
this is
Okay,
great.
all right, you're done.
Good night, everyone.
See you
Good
later.
night, Chief.
Alrighty. Moving on, residential permit fee increase. The building commissioner has petitioned the selectmen to increase the fees on residential permits due to keeping the permit fees in line with our neighboring communities. Is there a motion? Did everybody look at them? Mr. Barrett, you're here to explain the fees?
You have copies of it in front of you, Mr. Chairman. The fee structure is really very minor. It does kind of put us closer in line with some of the other communities, and it takes care of what I consider to be some inadequacies in how the fee affects one permit to the next. So it's a very minor increase. You can see what I've done. It's listed in red. At least my sheet is. I hope yours is as well.
We have it here, yeah.
So you can see the very minor increases, but I think it's a good move forward.
Yeah, no, like I say, I know a lot about the building one, and we're not the highest by far, but, it's getting close to the middle, maybe 50%, but the gas and the plumbing, I don't know, but I'm sure that if you helping out other communities researched a lot of this, and I think they're pretty adequate. I mean, probably still a little on the lower side, but the increases, can't do it all at once, so.
Right.
Yeah.
What's a storage container under, it's a new fee under plumbing and gas permits?
It's something that it's been very difficult for me over the years to enforce. They're storage containers, they're the metal boxes that you see that are basically roll-offs. Normally, when I was building, we used to have one put on site to keep materials and keep storage in, but now you're finding them all over the place. People are just buying them, putting them on their lots, there's no permits pulled for them. There's no assessment on them. They're becoming, I think, problematic. There have been cases when I've actually seen 2 storage containers spaced apart by 40 feet with metal trusses stretched across them, metal roofing put on top of that, and used them as huge garages. Again, there's no assessment for any of these. And I think it's improper for those people who come in to pull a permit for, a 15 by 20 shed. They're charged, they're giving us all the paperwork as far as where on the lot it's located, that is it compliant with zoning, but these people are just purchasing them, just bringing them on their lot, dump them off, and there you go.
Thank you. I asked the question because it's storage container, but it's listed under plumbing and gas permits, not on the building permit. So I know what a storage container is, but it's listed under plumbing and gas permits. So I was a little confused on where that was.
It's listed under other permits.
It says other.
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you broke that out, but it's congested in. So okay.
Okay?
Yeah, it just doesn't have its own column like you want to cross with the other column. See how you want to cross? I didn't really catch that you were breaking out other within the gas and building permits. I know, guys, I mean,
It says other right here, other permits.
when are we gonna be done raising these fees? Are we just continually do it because other communities are doing it as well, Mr. Merritt? Because it seems like we've done this several times already in the past, that we've raised fees, and I know it's kind of what, it's always been kind of said,
Yeah,
well, we're just kind of keeping up with the times.
I'm not an advocate for raising fees necessarily, I just think these were out of line in relationship to some of our other fees. I have no real proposals to increase the fee. As a builder myself, I think it's, there's a point in which we kind of tip the boat, start making people not apply, but I don't think this does that.
Yeah, I just know that we've done, and we've done some permitting increases over the years, and I just, we pay high taxes and we're gonna raise fees, and there's just some people out there that, made a new roof, a single parent, 2 or 3 kids that just can't afford the extra $25, $50, whatever it may be, and it impacts them, elderly people, seniors, and things of that nature. So I just don't wanna get too carried away with fees, because I don't wanna be that, tax and spend community, like other communities just want to raise fees just to spend more, so I think we need to be
I don't think that's the case, Mr. Gaspar.
conscious
I
of
think
that.
this is almost my 12th year I've been here, this is only the 3rd time we've raised fees in 12 years.
Yeah, I've
So I don't
noticed
think
that.
that's exorbitant. And I know when I was working part-time, covering for the town of Fairhaven, they had fees almost twice this in many areas.
Okay.
And just sort of further to what you said, and just to put a different perspective on it, I suppose, we just replaced the slider at my home and got a building permit. And the gentleman that did the work, he said, boy, you're lucky you live in Acushnet. He said, I can't tell you what this, or he did go through it, he told me what the permit would have cost in some of the communities around us based on the, some assess it based on the value of the project. But Acushnet, we're amongst the lowest, and I don't think these move us near the middle. I think, taxes aside, the building permits, I think we remain amongst the more affordable community. I mean, you've done a study, is that a fair statement or not, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, absolutely.
But that was the gentleman that did the work for me, who was gonna pull the permit, made that comment. You're lucky you live in Acushnet, because this could have cost you many times more than this in another town.
Yeah, we actually we hear that all the time.
Okay, there was some,
I'll make a motion to approve the increase in permit fees as presented.
is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, next, Buzzards Bay. And Buzzards Bay Coalition are collaborating on a study of salt marsh loss, sea level rise, and habitat change around Buzzards Bay, and are requesting permission to install a survey marker on town-owned property in the area of Beach Street and Lawson Avenue. This will reference elevation benchmark monuments and uplands adjacent to selected marshes. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to allow Buzzards Bay, NEP, and Buzzards Bay Coalition to install a survey marker on town-owned property as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Discussion. I'm not sure where this is. Where is this?
Down now.
And it said?
There's a map.
Yeah.
Beach and Lawson Avenue, so down by,
It's right at St. Rachel Avenue. It's Rachel Avenue.
no, I gave you guys black and white.
Next to Senator
Second one of
Set.
these.
I'm good. Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next, every year, the Board of Selectmen must approve the following licenses: Common Vic, All Alcohol Club, All Alcohol Section 15, All Alcohol Package Store, Restricted Music, Automatic Amusements, Class 2 Used, Class 3 Junk, and See Attachment.
Says Roger Cabral to read the list.
That's correct.
Really?
Yeah.
Just have to name it.
Somebody has to.
Just the name of the property?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just the address, or Country West?
You can do the actual establishment.
Oh, so read the center column.
Yeah.
Okay. 2019 license renewals, Common Vic, Country Whip, Seafood Hut, Rochelle's, Pop Casey's, TC Donuts, which is Dunkin' Donuts, Jeffrey's Pizza, The Mill, Captain's Place, Silverbrook Farms, American Legion, Cam's Cuisine, Century House, Blue Point Restaurant, Blue Lantern Cafe, VFW, Ponderosa, Rivers End Cafe, JT's, Keith Orchards, and Acushnet Creamery. All Alcohol Clubs, American Legion, VFW.
All alcohol license, Cam's Cuisine, Captain's Place, Century House, Blue Point Restaurant, Blue Lantern Cafe, River's End Cafe, Ponderosa, JT's, Acushnet River Valley. All alcohol package store, Scuttlebutts, Chuck's, that says hold, Chuck's Liquors, Bonville's Market, Town Liquors, Jason's Variety, Restricted Music, American Legion, VFW, Cam's Cuisine, Captain's Place, Century House, Blue Point Restaurant, Blue Lantern Cafe, River's End Cafe, Ponderosa, JT's. Automatic Amusements, American Legion, VFW, Blue Lantern Cafe, River's End Cafe, Ponderosa, JT's. Class 2 license, used car, Repweld Corp., White's Auto, Hayes Street Realty, Ted's. I've got one hold further down. Am I reading that, or are we hold not reading it? You read it and say hold. Read it and say hold. All right, it's Ted's, South Coast Premium, Shawmut Auto, Murray's Auto Sales, Tony's Service Station as a whole, South Main Street Entertainment, I'm guessing? Enterprises, enter, period. Class 3 junk, Repweld Corp., Riverside Auto Salvage, Ray's Sales and Service, Laycock Auto, and Fred's Collision.
Now you can read them all over again with the address.
Really?
I think you need to, I apologize, I think you need to.
No, no.
If you'd like, I'll read them, because it's my fault. I'd be delighted to participate in the punishment.
When did Mr. Gasper realize I was doing it wrong, would be the question.
We had a conversation while you were doing this about halfway through.
I thought I said the country, the
Yeah, my
establishment, the
apologies.
address,
Yeah,
but whatever.
establishment, the address.
Nobody
So,
stopped you.
Let's,
You did pretty good, though.
I can read, yeah. So how are we doing this?
we're gonna have to do it again, I apologize.
We're gonna do it again,
So it's
okay.
Country Whip, 1173 Main
Sorry.
Street, Seafood Hut, 2 South Main Street, Rochelle's, 590 to 594 Main Street, Pop Casey's, 141 South Main Street, Dunkin' Donuts, 150 South Main Street, Jeffrey's Pizza, 161 South Main Street, The Mill, 156 South Main Street, Captain's Place, 162 South Main Street, Silverbrook Farms, 934 Main Street, American Legion, 71 Hope Street, Cam's Cuisine, 132 Main Street, Century House, 107 South Main Street, Blue Point Restaurant, 6 Dayton Street, Blue Lantern Cafe, 605 Main Street, VFW, 28 Roosevelt Street, Ponderosa, 242 Robinson Road, River's End Cafe, 7.5 Tarpon Hill Road, JT's, 77 Slocum Street, Keith's Orchards, 1149 Main Street, Acushnet Creamery, 264 Main Street. I'm waiting to you, Raj. You want to
Back to me, yeah. American Legion, 71 Hope Street, VFW, 28 Roosevelt Street.
All alcohol license, Cam's Cuisine, 132 Main Street, Captain's Place, 162 South Main Street, Century House, 107 South Main Street, Blue Point Restaurant, 6 Dayton Street, Blue Lantern Cafe, 605 Main Street, River's End Cafe, 7.5 Tarkland Hill Road, Ponderosa, 142 Robinson Road, JT, 77 Slocum Street, Acushnet River Valley Golf Club, 685 Main Street.
Now, when reading the addresses, we're not saying what the license is. We do have to go back
I
to the
did
topic.
I did the topic, all alcohol license,
All
now you're
alcohol.
gonna do alcohol package
All
stores.
alcohol package store, Chuck's Liquors, 172 South Main Street, Bonville's Market, 142 South Main Street, Town Liquors, 1 Middle Road, Jason's Variety, 270 Main Road.
Gonna be the top one.
Hold on Scuttlebutts, hold.
Hold on,
590
Scuttlebutts,
South Main
590
Street.
South Main, right.
Okay.
Restricted Music, American Legion, 170 Hope Street, VFW, 28 Roosevelt Street, Cam's Cuisine, 132 Main Street, Captain's Place, 162 South Main Street, Century House, 107 South Main Street, Blue Point Restaurant, 6 Dayton Street, Blue Lantern Cafe, 605 Main Street, River's End Cafe, 7.5 Tarkland Hill Road, Ponderosa, 242 Robinson Road, and JT's, 77 Slocum Street.
Automatic Amusements, American Legion, 71 Hope Street, VFW, 28 Roosevelt Street, Blue Lantern Cafe, 605 Main Street, River's End Cafe, 7.5 Tarkland Hill Road, Ponderosa, 242 Robertson Road, JT's, 77 Slocum Street. That was Automatic Amusements, in case I didn't say that.
Class 2 license, used car, Repwell Corporation, 734 Main Street, White's Auto, 211 Middle Road, Hayes Street Realty, 3 Hayes Street, Ted's, 308 Middle Road, South Coast Premium, 127 South Main Street, Shawmut Auto, 118 South Main Street, Murray's Auto, 75 Lambert Street, Tony's Service Station, 158 Main Street, hold. South Main Street Enterprises, 16 South Main Street.
Class 3 junk, Rep Weld Corp., 734 Main Street. Riverside Auto Salvage, 1 Beach Street. Ray's Sales and Service, 4 Morton Lane. Laycock Auto, 1256 Main Street. Fred's Collision, 36 Slocum Street.
Okay.
I would have done that.
I
think it's amusing that you wanted to do it.
I feel as though I set him up for failure, so.
I didn't need it.
There's a second.
We do.
That was the motion.
Who read the
You didn't
motion?
do it like that, but you just read the address.
So the motion is written correctly.
I'll make a motion to approve the licenses as read, and the licenses that are held are approved pending the payment of taxes and the fire and building department site approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm just gonna abstain from Ted's.
He's related.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next, the Old Colony Regional is proposing updating their charter, also known as district agreement. All member towns have been asked to have their municipal council review the proposed changes. The documents have been forwarded to KP Law. The intent of the update is to ensure up-to-date language that accurately identifies current operation of the district. They are asking for the approval of the document as presented or recommendations for changes no later than December 17, 2018. The town administrator has asked town council to review the proposal, but before they can perform the review, KP Law has asked the board to sign an informed consent. All 4 towns represented by KP Law will also have to sign the consent form. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, before we go through with a motion, it seems to be counterintuitive because it's asking us for the approval of the document as presented, but then it's asking, then town council's asking us if it's okay to waive their ethics about other communities being involved with the review. So did town council give us a review this already and give us the
We're
approval
asking
saying
them
we're
to
good?
review, but before they will do their review, they have to have the consent letter from the Board of Selectmen that you understand and you know that they're representing multiple towns on this. So they're not just
I
representing
understand,
your
but
interest.
you're asking us to approve.
No, actually, I'm
No,
asking you only to assign the consent, the informed
The
consent.
motion,
We're
yeah.
not approving the changes to the...
All right, because the motion says
We can't
to approve and sign the
Termination
determination
letter.
letter.
Just the
Just
determination
the
letter.
determination letter.
Correct.
Not as what was
Not
read in here.
Not the charter or the district agreement.
Not the changes to the charter at all.
Okay. Make a motion to approve and sign the determination letter as presented and request the town council's opinion on the proposed district agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, citizens interested to be appointed to the Cultural Council. Ms. Leonard and Ms. Watts are requested to be appointed to the Cultural Council. At this time, the council is short on members. The local Cultural Council shall consist of at least 5 members and no more than 22 members, and shall be appointed for a term of 3 years. Is there a motion to appoint?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to appoint Mrs. Leonard and Ms. Watts to the Cultural Council for a 3-year term.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Next.
Just, just to put it out there, if anybody else wants to go and apply to be on the board, like you said, we could have up to 22 members, and right now they're so short that I had been a member previously, but I figured,
So they don't have enough members for a quorum, so you're just being nice and filling in so they have enough members for a
She's gonna
quorum.
work hard.
no, but I'm gonna do my
1
job.
meeting a year.
No, you don't make anything.
I said 1 meeting a year.
Oh, yeah, well,
You're not making anything. He said you're gonna work hard. I said it's 1 meeting a year.
Just bring some culture. Bring some culture.
Okay, next,
Thank you, Ms. Leonard.
Department of Public Works, right of entry agreement for 4 Arches Way. The Department of Public Works on occasion needs to make repairs to water pipes on premises of town residents. Before undertaking the work to minimize disruption in water service, the DPW is required to enter onto the resident's property and to make necessary repairs. This agreement is required so the owner understands and agrees that the water division is not responsible for damages to the property, and the owner is responsible for the fees incurred to make the repairs to 4 Arches Way. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the right of entry agreement for 4 Arches Way as presented.
Second, and this is not water pipes, this is a
It's
detention
drainage detention ponds.
pond.
Mr. Chairman, can I make one comment that I think the board's alluded to for Mr. Noble to translate this? So before the town goes forward and accepts any more roads in the future, drainage should be part of the acceptance of the road.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is the reason why we're doing this now, is because in the past, the planning boards never put the drainage or the detention ponds as part of the acceptance of the road. We did it, matter of fact, with Mr. Chopper's old road, Thomas Hill Road. The
Not
drainage.
my road.
Well, where you resided.
I don't know any of
Where you
that.
resided in the past. So, I mean, to get rid of this problem,
I think, and of course, as you know,
needs to be done that way.
this, any petition to accept a road is gonna require this board's approval to go to the warrant. And so, if for any reason I don't catch it, I really, this has to be caught. This is a nightmare that we've created for us.
What's up with this detention pond?
It's just a regular maintenance issue.
A regular, all right,
Yeah.
routine maintenance.
But we have to cross private property to do it, so you need a right of entry.
That's been a crazy issue.
We actually ask the board quite frequently for rights of entry.
Yeah.
So this is pretty pro forma.
Did we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, town administrators report.
Great, thank you.
Almost done, folks.
Before you, I submitted to you a big package, what you can do with entertainment licenses. As you recall, this board asked me to take a look at our entertainment licenses, and I have done that, and I've gone to a class even. It's amazing what fees you can charge for doing nothing. So this comes back to your point earlier, Mr. Gasper, about this is why people hate government, because there's a fee for breathing in this potential. And so what I've given to you in the presentation is all of the possibilities. I've made no judgments for you, I'm just asking for your guidance. These list the potential for the licenses that exist under the law, and I even printed out the law for you so you could read it. So the licenses have to be issued, obviously, in accordance with law, but the fee can be determined by the Board of Selectmen. So, for example, they have a license application fee, a hearing fee, and then, of course, the fee for the license. I don't think you need all 3, but that's up to the board to decide. There are many cases you don't need a public hearing. You can pick a license and then put additional restrictions on that license, what's called mutual assent. In other words, it's either that or you don't get a license. So those possibilities are there. I presented to you multiple options of what you can do within the fee structure and the kind of licenses that we perhaps should consider having. Some are somewhat, as I've had a conversation with at least 2 of you about the ridiculous nature of some of the requirements, and I think you can walk past those. I think you apply a permit under these standards, and then you decide what the appropriate fee is before, of course, we have an applicant.
Yeah, I've had discussion with you on this. I don't know if you want to meet with 3 of us, get our own opinion, and then you can put together a consensus of what we're saying, and then maybe we can debate what's good, what's bad, and, what we want here and there, because, like I said, I read through that, I mean, just some of these establishments, we could charge them probably about $1,000 in fees if we went by the book. It's just totally ridiculous, and I don't think it's proper for doing that. But if you want to do that, we can pick your
We
brain,
can either
pick our
schedule
brain,
a
or
separate
we can
working
do
environment, or we can talk offline, and then I can come back to you with a proposal in public to say, this is what I'm proposing for the level of permits and the number of permits. And then, of course, we've got an applicant who is asking us, well, what's the rules? And I would like to come back to them with an answer sooner than later. So,
Is that
Yeah,
agreeable?
make a recommendation as to what, some of the fees just seem ridiculous.
If he gets our opinions on all of them, we can put together, and then we can...
And we can either do that as a working meeting, or I can just do it one-on-one.
Well, if there's disagreement on the conclusion of where the fees are and how the permits, I mean, obviously, then we're going to have a working meeting.
Yeah.
We're tying out those issues, but other than that,
Get it together first.
I think one of the things that I really wanted to make sure that you understood is, what are your options? and then determine where you wanted to go from there so that I did the will of the board. And then when I come back with a proposal, it is the consensus of the board.
Correct.
Okay. That's one. Two, I've been giving you a copy of the RFP for health insurance. As you know, annually, we have to renew our health insurance. And if I wish to be honest with you, we could get into a situation where you could pick a health insurance plan and stick with it for a number of years, but those days seem to be over. So we actually are going in a situation, and the law changed where you used to only be able to go out for an RFP every 2 years. State now allows an RFP every year, because they're recognizing the fact that this health insurance is a competitive and changing world. So that's there.
No cost to the town.
No cost to the town. We hired NFP as a consultant for our health insurance 2 years ago, and there's an annual $4,500 fee that we pay them for preparing this and looking at our health insurance options. And we also have a contract with them to administer our COBRA. So they are a known vendor to us, but this RFP is part of their consulting contract. Okay. Also before you, I had notified the board in writing about the FCC wanting to change the rules for the license holder of cable, in other words, Comcast for us, and eliminate the PEG, or the educational, government, and public access fee that the Comcast pays to the town, so we can support cable broadcasting of our meetings. And this would obviously cut the amount of money we have available, and then we'd have to sort of cut the pay, number of paid volunteers, if you will, that we have to do this. So this would be detrimental to the town. And it would cut all of this that you see was provided by that PEG money. So I am proposing to you a letter to the FCC, which was in your package, and I'm asking you to sign it tonight so we can get it in the mail.
Did you get a chance to review it?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we sign on to the letter as proposed.
Is there a second?
I'll trust in Mr. Noble's work that it was done. I haven't got through it, but that's fine. Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
There's the closet talking to you. He wants to get paid.
Thank you very much. That's all I have for you this evening.
All right, before we adjourn, our next meeting will be December 18th. Are we gonna need that next week, or?
I would defer to the chairman.
December 18th, I could
Is
not.
there any way we can move this executive session off tonight?
Yes?
Can we get rid of executive, meet sometime during the week? I mean, it's just a couple of simple things. It's personnel stuff for us. We don't need to.
I would defer to Mr. Cabral, whose contract we're discussing.
I'd like to brief them on where we are, so.
Okay.
I'd
What's
like
the
to.
time limit on
We
it?
can go in,
I
yeah, we
can
can
do
go
it,
in and
I can
brief
do it
all.
quickly, I can do it quickly,
Please
but
choose
I'd
it
like to,
up by
I'd like to
second.
bring you two up to speed on what's going on.
You know,
Fine,
let's
we'll
have
do
that. Yeah. The 18th, no.
The 18th is not a great day, but I think it's.
I cannot do the 18th.
I'll,
Christmas shopping, are we?
at this
Christmas
particular
or late,
moment,
I'll put it that way.
at this particular moment, I see no need to meet again. But that may change, in which case I will contact the chairman and we'll give you out a list of dates for possibilities. But at the moment, I think we might be done. The licenses are done. You've done all the business you need to do this year. So unless there's a reason for meeting, a compelling reason for meeting, I think.
Call
we're
a
done.
meeting to order.
That being said, seeing this will be the last meeting before Christmas, I'd like to wish all the residents out there a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Be safe, and gentlemen, safety. Is there a motion to adjourn?
No. We need a motion to go to
You gotta
executive
go into
session.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, we're doing that. All right, I will, this one, okay. I will accept the motion to go into executive session under General Law C30A 21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, police union. General Law C30A 21A2 to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with non-union personnel, fire chief, treasurer, collector. As an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining and litigating position of public body and not to return to public session. Roll call vote. Selectman Cabral?
Yes.
Selectman Gasper?
Yes.
Yes, we are now in executive session. Will not reconvene in open session.